Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous dance baby, and welcome to another episode of More Than Dance. Right before I press record just now, I just got the most beautiful text message in the world from my friend saying that her water broke and she is on her way to the hospital about to deliver. Originally, I had a plan, as I normally do, to talk about something, and I feel compelled to shift. I thought it would be fitting to talk about backstage energy and the moment before the big moment. There's so many parts to being backstage that are special, but specifically today, I'm talking about the moment before you walk on stage. When you go on stage, there's just so much that is about to happen. And performing is obviously something that we as dancers, we as artists get to feel something from. And we get a beautiful exchange with our audience because they're about to receive. And what goes on backstage is so much. And last time, I think I talked a little bit more about the chaos backstage. And this time, I want to talk more about the mindset and the composure that we get to give ourselves so that we can deliver. And in a sense, it's a lot like being your own cheerleader, being your own meditation guide, being your own life coach, sometimes being your own nurse, which raise your hand if you've ever had like some kind of something before backstage where you needed like a Band-Aid or first aid. It happens more often than you think. And getting the privilege of being backstage is such an honor because anytime that I'm in the audience and me as a dancer, I'm looking at the stage, I'm like, I wonder what it's like back there. I wonder what's going on. And I can kind of picture there's probably quick changes and running, slight jogging and trotting from the green room when you're in the wing. And there's just so much excitement and so much thrill. And also, sometimes there's fear. And when we get ready for a performance, we're getting ready to show ourselves, to show what we've been working on, to show what we've been accomplishing behind the scenes, all the work that we've been doing for however long. And if you're not a dancer, you can relate to this in the sense of like maybe the moment before an interview, or if you have another special skill, maybe the moment, like Josh is a videographer, so maybe the moment before he's about to film the ceremony at a wedding. I would like to think that we've all kind of felt a feeling of backstage energy. And it's kind of funny because when I'm DJing, when I'm talking to my couples, I'm always referring to the moment where I'm lining them up as our backstage time, because I'm lining them up, getting them ready, getting them pumped, getting them excited so that they're ready to get out there and see all their special guests. Backstage energy is so exciting because there's so much adrenaline and there's so much acceptance to the unknown. A lot of people are scared of the unknown. They don't know what it's going to be like. And before a performance, no matter how much you rehearse, it's hard to know exactly what it will be like because dance is a live art. Anything can happen. Any interaction with the audience or another dancer can affect everything that's going on. So all these hours and hours of practice, they go into one moment. It's such a huge buildup and it requires so much mentally from us. That mental energy is presence and alignment and also being okay with stillness, being okay with nothing happening. Because when you're backstage, sometimes it can feel, especially, oh my gosh, when we were little kids and we'd be performing in that 2-hour show, it would feel like a whole day before it was our turn to perform our like 3 routines. I just remember like waiting in the room and waiting and is it our turn yet? Is it our turn yet? And when it was time to just leave the room and then line up and then go backstage and then be in the wing, there were all these different stages of excitement. And backstage energy really allows us to understand our patience, our stillness, and our readiness. And in the comparison, I guess, with my friend and her pregnancy, she's 11 days late, the stillness that she's had to have, the patience that she's had to have, the readiness, the pep talks backstage, the wondering, and the presence that she's gotten to have with herself is a skill. And when we get used to having this skill, we get to be prepared. The stillness is sacred. And sometimes it can go the complete opposite way. And I think we know what that is, right? We call that panic, anxiety, anxiousness. Like also just thinking about like little kids on stage. Like, have you ever just seen the one that she made it on stage, but she's just like crying her eyes out and like some part of her really wants to be there, but she's not used to taking it all in. And it's just so different because again, going back to you can prepare so much and yet still not feel completely prepared because the moment of performing is always different, even if it's slightly the same. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, obviously. There goes the Socratic seminar again. But every performance is different because you are different every time and everyone around you is different every time. I think of it kind of like when you're playing pool. You break the same way, right? Maybe if that's your technique. And the balls are going to do different things every time. Like it's just always different. Now you rehearse your stroke and that's how the outcome is. Just different. So I want to help you channel your backstage energy in the case of you performing soon or having a big moment soon to help you to make that moment the most special, sacred moment and to give it energy of abundance versus anxiety and nervous. And my wish for you is to absorb that feeling and to feel good about everything that you've done. Because as we talk about in the past, actually, I'm not sure if I've shared this with you, but I do share it with my performance team. And I usually say, you're only as good as your worst performance. Kind of sounds horrible when I'm saying it right now, but when we're drilling and we're doing our routines, remember, I think I told you that we do 25 full outs before we go on stage, and you're only as good as your worst full out. So what that means is those really, really good ones, when you have no other variables for you, those are great ones. But then when you're thrown, like someone's looking at you, or, the music is weird, or the lights go out, like we were talking about last week, you're kind of like, I don't know, when you start thinking and maybe you're not thinking of your routine anymore and you kind of get lost. I think about another backstage metaphor when I had my knee surgery, like waiting in that waiting room. My gosh, like it was so nerve-wracking. And to just be able to use my experience with dance and being backstage and understanding that waiting game, that stillness, that presence, that alignment, and all the strategies it takes to prepare yourself for being on stage, I was able to center myself and lean into the trust in that I chose the correct doctors and that I chose the right facility and that I was making the right decision in even getting the surgery in the first place. So let's start with some things that you can lean into. So the first is obviously going to be your breath, because when you can get centered with your breath, that's always going to help. There's different breaths to do. The classic one, just like inhale, hold, and exhale, and just don't think too much about it because sometimes it's hard to even just breathe. There's always like a time for a backstage panic. And if you can help yourself out of that, it's usually coming from some urgency to please or to make sure that you don't let anyone down. And you start like spiraling in your head and you're just thinking and what if this happens? And what if this happens? And then if, all that happens, then what if this happens? And just breathe. Hold on. Let's not think about it, because when you can get centered with your breath, you can gain your presence. The next is to honor the pause. And this is kind of an oxymoron backstage, because backstage, everything's like hustle, bustle, chaos. It's rarely calm. It is, but in like a horror movie way, like something is coming. And it's kind of like funny energy, because especially if you're well rehearsed, you're like, okay, like I know what's going to happen. Maybe you've performed the routine before. It's kind of like, what's happening? Like, oh, also like, where's the bathroom? Like, is there a bathroom here? We performed in the street like a couple weeks ago and I was like, I don't know where the bathroom is. Like, it's just kind of funny to just feel all of that hustle bustle around you, and then to also just be able to like block it out and be so in tune like with yourself and with your team and with your moment. So a great thing to do is to remind yourself that you don't need to rush. The only time that you need to rush really is when you have a quick change, and or if you're about to go back on stage and you need to like go get something and drink water or come back. Maybe you forgot part of your costume. Like, yes, then obviously rush. But if you're waiting to go on, you can feel that rushy energy, and it's not adding to your performance. It's not going to help you. What's going to help is to just enjoy and to take it all in and to have fun backstage. And there was a couple of shows that I did within the past few years, and it was only after the show was over that I kind of like checked in with myself and I was like, that was so fun. I want to do it again, versus like living and like recognizing every moment and just being like, this is fun too, and really connecting with that. And so this year when we did the same event, I was really checking in with myself, because that was the one thing that I was like, oh, I wish I like didn't let that weekend just like rush by. And this time I was actually kind of like proud of myself in a way, because I didn't feel like I missed, which is such a funny thing to say, because like I know like logically I didn't miss that experience, but because I wasn't present enough with the experience, it was like I missed it, and that I was living it through my replay versus living it through the actual experience. The next is to speak life into the moment. And anything really works for this, but just like reminding yourself like how much you've prepped for this, how much work went into this, how you know exactly like what to do when you get on stage, reminding yourself of the things maybe you're still working on, because it's possible that you could still be working on something, or there might be like one move that you're like, I hope I nail it. And it's funny because there could be one move in your routine that you're still like trying to master, but it's in your routine because you're just accepting the challenge. And sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. And I remember this when I used to compete in gymnastics, because that was a whole other thing, and we can talk about that more. But being on those like different apparatuses, like you're like, I don't know if I'll hit it. Like it's just kind of like the luck of the draw, like at that level, because we weren't Olympians. I feel like even sometimes Olympians are like, will I get this? Will I not? It goes back to that basketball conversation of, well, will I get this shot or not? So there's all that fun anticipation that we get to lean into versus being scared of. So say your affirmations, get excited about what you're about to do, and remind yourself that you worked hard for this moment. The next is kind of funny because it requires you to be 5D thinking, and that is understanding that you have nerves, yes, but nerves don't mean that you're not ready. So you almost have to like come out of your body for that one and be like, hey girl, you're good. You got this. And to take nerves with you. Remember, we talk about having fear in the backseat with you and letting it come for the ride, because that's the true way that elite leaders, role models, that's what they do. They take their fear with them. They take their nerves with them. And just another reminder that nerves equals care. So sometimes you can have your nerves because maybe you don't feel ready. And also you can have nerves because you care deeply about what you're doing. You care deeply about the outcome. And the next is to stretch your patience. So we talked about patience. We talked about the waiting and how exciting that is and how we can be still in that moment. And this is just a reminder to see how much you can stretch that skill. How can that be different for you? Maybe you handle patience differently in different seasons. Maybe you're reflective of other things going on in your life, and those things could be testing your patience, and you might have to call in for more patience for different times. So just knowing when and why you're doing that is such a great level of awareness that you can have backstage. So going back to gymnastics for a second, I just remember one meet, I had to pee before every time I went. And it wasn't like I got the notification from my body when I was like 6 people behind. It was like when I was on deck, and I'd have to make that decision, like, do I risk it and be a little bit late, or do I just like hold it and then do some awkward routine because I have to pee? And I was like maybe 8 when this was happening. So like I didn't have the conscious thoughts that I do now, but now I can say like, oh, you were so nervous. Like, you took that fear and you took those nerves and you went for it and you did it. If you're sick backstage, oh my gosh, that just reminds me. Oh, poor girl. Story for another day. Also probably too gross for a podcast for me to share, but something happened. If you know, you know. And it was on the stairs. So yeah, just knowing that like all that stuff can happen and you can still recognize that you're in it and to not lose focus because of that. So let's talk about you. What are some backstage moments that you're about to have either coming up, or some that you can even reflect on that you've just had within the past month or year? So maybe you're launching an event, maybe you're speaking at something, maybe even you're about to break up with someone and you have that like backstage energy of like getting ready to do it and how scary that can be. Maybe you're about to embark on a new job and you have a transition coming up in your life and now you can use that backstage energy towards that. Even grief has backstage energy, and before it hits, there's this silent tension. And I think about also like these times before my surgeries. Oh my gosh, I remember my first knee surgery. It was such a long wait and it was fasted, as you know, because you're not supposed to eat or drink. And I just remember like doing my final cartwheel in the waiting room. And I was pretty confident going into that surgery because I don't know, I felt pretty confident, but I remember like being like, I wonder when I'll be able to do a cartwheel again. So my backstage energy was nervous, anxious, and also because my time slot was supposed to be at like 9 and it didn't end up going into like 4:30, it was just like extra backstage energy. With these backstage moments in mind, I also want to remind you that you don't need to perform all the time. There is a purpose in the backstage energy, and own it. So if you're about to go and ask for a raise, or if you're about to quit your job, or if you're about to maybe ask someone out, own that for yourself. Own that backstage energy and have fun with it and enjoy it. And don't do what I did that time where I just enjoyed it from a flashback or enjoyed it from a replay. Learn how to enjoy it in the moment. And as always, trust your preparation, trust the pause, trust the stillness. Backstage energy is the start of your big moment. And if you haven't felt your big moment or you don't know if it's coming, find your patience in that, because that is also the backstage energy. It's just you're not on deck yet. You're in the holding room. And just like to get you thinking bigger, this also goes hand in hand with manifestation. So if you're someone like me and you like to manifest, sometimes it's so good to just think about your manifestation like you put an order in at a restaurant and you tell them what you want and then you let them take it to the computer, put it in, and let the kitchen handle it, and hopefully it comes out right. And the more specific you are, the more specific it'll be. That being said, if your moment is not here yet and you're living in backstage energy, don't rush it. Trust that the universe will bring it to you when it's your time. Because the moment before the moment is just as real, just as sacred, just as worth honoring, because that's where a lot of things start. A lot of things start in the preparation, tech, dress rehearsal, and a lot of other things that are hard to prepare for, come right in that backstage moment. How to handle yourself when you're nervous, how to be on stage. So when I think about my friend right now and what she's about to do, I'm so excited for her big backstage moment, which is right now, because the big performance is right around the corner. If you found this helpful, I'd love to ask you for a 5-star written review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the dance floor.